persisting the user-generated content to the app. Because right now, if I create a video, whether it be I capture a video or I got a video from my photo library, when I relaunch the app, the video is gone. So we need to persist it. We need to save it to the user's device. Okay? To do so, we will use core data, right? Other ways you could persist data, like we've seen before, you could persist it via documents directory. You could persist it on Firebase, iCloud, we haven't seen yet, but you could persist stuff on iCloud and have the user sign in with the Apple account, stuff like that. But for now, we'll use core data here because again, for the projects you're working on right now, that would be very useful there to see what core data saving objects looks like. And especially like how do I save images to core data? How do I save video content to core data? So that's what we're gonna be doing. And also it gives us a chance to see how to add core data in an existing project. Because right now, our project does not have core data. And we intentionally did that because the first time we saw core data last week, we created core data by checking the box. But this time around, we'll be adding core data after the fact in an existing project. So basically what we need to do to get core data started is we need to click, everybody has access to the lesson, correct? I'm following the lesson here. I'm looking at number 14.
Yes.
All right, cool. So we're looking at number 14 here, and in the drop down, this is what we need to add. So as I said before last week, if I want to add core data to an existing application, I need to go ahead and either create a new project and create a new project using core data and get the content from the app delegate, which is this content here, which we'll all copy. Go ahead and copy that all the way from the pragma mark all the way to the last curly bracket here. So copy all the contents of this particular dropdown. So that's the first step. Get the code needed for the app delegate. And the second step, we have to go ahead and create a new file. This particular file, we'll call it MediaFeed data model. And this is the second step to adding core data to your application.
Wait, what did we copy? What number is that? Oh, you have to, hold on. Oh, you have to push down, okay.
Yeah, I have the same question. What is like,
and this
16?
is the same thing that we had in our core data project that we're just copying and pasting?
Exactly. This is very similar to what we had before. We just copy and paste in it because now we do not have core data in our app. We need to add core data into our application. And those are the two steps. One, get the persistence container and the save context into your app delegate. And the second one is to create this data model file. So far, so good?
Yes.
All right, cool. So make sure you copy the contents here, the two functions. Make sure you copy this. All right, copy. And now let's go to our app. So in our app, we'll navigate to the app delegate. So click on the app delegate of the application. And right below our last function here that says scene sessions for application did discard scenes here, go ahead and paste the code in and build.
Wait. In the app delegate under.
In the app delegate under the last function, just paste the code in. So right around line 35 in the app delegate.
Alex, where did we copy it from?
We copied it from the lesson, number 14 in the lesson. There's a drop down here, right below the heading that says adding the core data stack to an existing app. This arrow, click on the arrow, it's going to drop down the code and copy the contents of the code here. Except in the import core data part, just copy from the mark point here up to the last curly bracket.
Wait, did I copy the wrong thing? Let me see yours.
You probably got the core data manager. Which one you got?
Yeah.
We'll get to the core data manager later, but that one we won't copy that one. We need to write that one out.
Where it says add this. Oh, okay, I see it now.
Yep.
So don't do the import.
Don't do the import. We'll do the import. Yeah, we'll do the import later.
Just copy. Okay. Okay. Input mark.
So I'm getting an error with the lazy variable.
What does the error say?
It says lazy must not be used on an already lazy global. It just wants me to get rid of lazy.
Don't do anything as far as like changing lazy here for now.
Okay, you have it too. Maybe.
Okay. The one thing we need to do here is what? What we need to do?
Import core data.
Import core data, because right now there's NS persistence container. App delegate doesn't know anything about this. So now we need to import core data. So import core data should get rid of all the errors we have. Where am I? Import data. Import core data. Okay. If you import core data,
you grab the core data stack, right?
yeah. So I grabbed from basically, if we go back to the lesson here, the core data stack from the pragma mark here,
yep,
all the way down to the last curly bracket.
Strange. I'm still getting that error.
You in the app delegate, yeah? Are you putting it inside of a function? Make sure you're not inside the function.
Nope. I'm outside all the functions.
Outside all the functions. Yeah. Anybody getting Greg's error?
No.
Okay.
Remove it and repaste it.
All right.
Remove it, build it, make sure you have no errors that's on the line apart from this. And then paste it back in.
Right, outside of application.
Outside of application scene sessions. And make sure you import core data here.
I see what I did.
What?
Okay.
What happened?
I was outside the function, but I was also outside the class itself.
So you were
too far out. Yep.
Too far out. Got it. Cool. That makes sense. Cool. So good. One thing I want us to make sure we keep in mind here. Let's look at line 42. Right around line 42 here, right around where it says let container equal to persistence container. Do we all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure whatever the string here is, that string represents the data model's name. So copy the string, MediaFeed data model, copy that string. Whatever we call in our data model needs to match that. If it doesn't match, we're gonna get some word crashes. Very similar to like a storyboard file. Like if I name a storyboard login view and I access it using an identifier, it has to be login view as well. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? All right, cool. So make sure we copy that string here. And now let's go to step 2. So step 1, get your core data stack into the app delegate. Step 2, create the data model. So we're going to step 2 now. We'll create a data model. We'll go to new file. So file, new file, iOS. I'm scrolling down to where I see core data here, and I'm selecting data model. So select data model beneath core data.
Wait.
Cancel.
Select new file.
File, new file.
And
iOS is selected, which is the default we're using.
the data model under core data. Okay.
Data model under core data. Very good.
And this is our first time doing it.
That's our first time doing it. I spoke about it already last week, but that's the first time actually doing it. Because the first time we did it, we selected core data option, remember?
Yes.
Yeah, so now we're doing it manually. So click data model, go next. And here, whatever string we copied earlier, where it says model here, save as model, do we see that?
Yeah.
Paste the string in. Well, I just messed up a little bit. What's the name of it?
MediaFeed data model.
Data model. Thank you. So make sure the string is the same here. Make sure it says MediaFeed data model here. And now just go ahead and create it. And great, perfect. Everybody was able to create the data model here? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, always looking for feedback. I need that because I don't have video. At this point, build and make sure you have no errors, no compiler errors, no linker errors, no errors. So we build, everything is good. At this point, we could actually push our code because nothing is broken at this point. We didn't break anything. We could write a message and just say added core data stack, including data model file. So added core data stack, including data model file. I commit this and I push to GitHub. Okay. Great. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the lesson and see what's next. So next is our attributes and our entities. For now, we have one entity. We'll call the entity CD media object. Why CD media object? Well, one, we have a media object that exists already, right? We could just delete it, but we're not gonna do that. We'll just keep it there for references. Because maybe at some point you probably wanna experiment with a different persistence mechanism. But the media object itself right now in the app is great because it gets us far. It gets us creating objects, it gets us doing a lot of things. And we could take that same object and simply just say conform to quotable. And at that point, what can I do with this? I could save it to documents directory. Everybody with me?
Yes.
All right, cool. So
Wait,
we'll keep the
copy that.
copy. No, not to copy it. Don't copy it. I was just saying like what this media object could do for us later if we want to use it.
Where did that? Oh, okay. Wait. Oh, we made this before. Okay. So
Yeah, we made this yesterday. This is what we've been using. This is the object we use when we say we add something to our collection view.
yeah.
But now we're going away from that object. We're going towards core data. Cool. So now we'll create a model. We did that already. This is the attributes, the basic attributes we'll need. We could add or remove or whatever, but at minimum, this is the attributes we have. An ID, which is a string. A creator date, which we love dates, we love IDs. A caption, which if you're using your group project right now, you probably have some sort of caption there that the user enters, like activity, whatever I'm doing. Video data, we save it as binary data. We kind of spoke about that last week, but we did not exactly do it yet in code. But basically this binary data here, there's a property in the configuration attributes that allow you to say, hey, I want to save, if it's bigger than core data is allowing, go ahead and save it externally. So I'm gonna check out the option to say, allow external storage. So the last thing you wanna do is save everything to core data. It loads into memory, you have all those huge files. So what core data does, it's smart enough to know if it's too big, I think it's like 128 kilobytes or something like that, some number. If it's too big, if it's bigger than that particular file size, it will go ahead and save the video or the image to the file system, okay? So we'll do that for both the image data, which is an image, and for the video data, which is the actual data that we will be converting from URL to data, okay? So those are the attributes we'll have. Okay, and then next we'll talk about the core data manager, which we've seen before. So let's go ahead and actually start doing the entity. Again, the entity is called CD, the prefix CD. The prefix CD just stands for core data, so core data media object. So let's go ahead and do so. Any questions before we go ahead and do that?
No.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and do so. So let's go to our data model, which is empty right now. Nothing there. How do I add an entity?
You click the button, add entity.
Okay, very good. So that's self-explanatory there. Thank you. And now I edit my entity name by clicking once on it, and then I call it CD, what do we call it? CD media object. Okay, cool. So we have one entity, one table, one class. Great. Again, an entity is analogous with a class or a table in database parlance there. So we have one entity. Next, we want to add our attributes, right? So the attributes are the properties of the class or the properties of the entity. In that case, we want to go ahead and start adding attributes. So here we'll click on add. Our first attribute will just say ID. ID is of type, what do we say, string? What's the other properties we have?
Created date.
Created date. And created date is of type date. Other properties?
Caption.
Caption of type string.
Video data.
Video data of type binary data. And image data. Thank you so much.
Alex,
yes.
what's the difference between integers?
What's the difference between integers?
Yeah.
It depends on how many bytes or bits they hold. So the bigger one you want to go with, if you're using some sort of int value, is int64. It holds more values.
So how do we?
If I want to have a number for something,
know
like
which one to use?
just go with 64. That's the default. The default. Go with 64. If you're doing an int, just do int64. Okay, unless you're doing like a lower level C function where it doesn't support 64 bits and it supports 16-bit. But as far as like Swift, like for now, the apps we're building, 64 would be fine.
Alex, yesterday I was trying to do the lab for core data, and I was trying to save the likes, which is of type int.
The likes is of type int. Okay.
Yeah, but when I did the core data, I chose like int64.
Okay.
But when I was trying to like save it, it said that it wasn't the same type, which kind of makes sense, I guess. But why doesn't it work?
Because
it's
typecasted.
Typecast it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You mean going into core data or coming out?
Yeah, going into it.
Yeah, typecast it to an integer and see what happens.
But it's an int already. I'm saying like.
You could just say on the object name dot int equal to, that doesn't work for you?
No.
I want to take a look at what you're doing. Can you maybe snippet out what you have?
Well, I took it out because I was like, I don't want to deal with this right now. But yeah.
Took out tags because they were not working for some reason.
Really?
Yeah.
I just did a map on it and then it worked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, wait. Tags is just a
String.
string. Yeah. So it's fine.
I don't know why it was crashing the.
That's weird.
You might have to cast it to a number, but send me the code and I'll take a look at what's happening in your end.
Okay, I'll send it to you
But
later.
either way, it could be like you have to cast it to like an NS number, which core data, which again, more Objective-C parlance there needs to see. Okay?
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Or you could just you could just make it a double. That's gonna work.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but try to cast it to either an NS number or let me take a look at it and see what's going on.
Okay, thanks.
All right, cool. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll take a look at that. Okay, so for now, this is all we have as far as like the basic requirements of our object. And if we mimic what we have for the media object, again, we're not saving the URL per se, because the URL could just go away if the person deletes the video, so that's not gonna work. We have a caption, we have an ID, we have a created date, and this is good. So our video URL becomes like video data, if that makes sense here. All right, cool. So we have all our attributes. The next thing we said we needed to do is go configure the binary data object in the attributes inspector. So click on the image data first, click on image data here, and go to the attributes inspector or the data model inspector. And right beneath type, do we see allows external storage?
Yes.
All right, so make sure we check that for both the image data and the video data, okay? Again, that just saves it in a different location apart from the core data model or the core data object itself, right? If it's bigger than the minimum requirement or the maximum requirement. If it's bigger than the maximum size, it saves it externally. So this is the option, both for image data and for video data. So that's pretty much that. Click on our entity and let's go configure the class here in the model inspector. So click on the entity, the one entity we have, go beneath the class and change where it says model here. Make sure it says current module, right? Make sure it says current module and change class definition to manual. Okay, and that's it. Now let's go ahead and generate our classes and our properties Swift classes. So click on your model, our entity, go to editor, go down to create NS manage object.
Sorry, Alex, could you do that again? I just missed it.
No problem. Which part? The class part?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the class.
Oh, okay. Yeah, manual.
Make sure
okay,
module, and this is, yeah.
Yep.
And then go to editor and click on create NS manage object subclasses. Yeah?
Yep.
All right, click on that. This is selected, that's good, go next. The one entity we have is selected, go next. And we'll just save it. We're all in one location pretty much here, so that's fine, create this. Actually, we're not in one location. I need to drag it. I should have put it in there. That's fine. We could just drag it down. Okay, cool. Great. So we have our class and we have our properties. And if we look at our properties, those are the properties we have. Close this. All right. Looking good. At this point, we could actually push our code to GitHub. Just get in the practice of doing this. So here, I'll go to source control, commit. And I'll write a message generated, well, not just generated, but created.
Mine didn't go into the MediaFeed folder. It went into just the project.
Yeah, just drag it down. We did not go into the folder. That was our fault there, but just drag it down. Created entity and attributes. Created entity and attributes, that's good. And generated class, and generated managed classes. So created entity, which we did, and attributes, which we did, and generated the managed classes, or manage object classes. Okay, so this is what we did.
Generated the, what? The managed.
Yeah. And then commit 6 files, push to GitHub. Great. Questions? So far, so good? Everybody's good? Error-free? Warning-free? All right. All right, cool. Let us now go build our core data manager, which we did on Friday or Thursday. Very similar. We'll have one class managing, creating, fetching, deleting, everything we need to do with like core manager. We'll have a class to manage that. So let's go ahead and create a class. Swift file. It's a Swift file. It's not a subclass of anything. It's a Swift file. Go next. And we'll call this core data manager. So core data manager, this is good. Create. And we have our core data manager class. Import foundation.
File?
What's that? It's a Swift file, yeah.
And we call it
Core data manager.
Are we gonna start putting it? Do you have like? Can you give some advice on like how to section these off? Because I feel like everything is just like.
We will. I mean, we have models. We have a controller. We have, yeah. We could section that out.
Okay, but I would like for you to maybe do it with us because I wouldn't know exactly.
Okay. All right. We could do it. So let's see.
Not now. And later.
Okay. All right. So we could do it later. That's fine. All right. So let's go to the core data manager. Core data manager, it's a class. It's called core data manager. well, we're dealing with core data manager. I think we need to import core data, which makes sense because we have model objects and stuff to deal with. Same as last week, we'll make this a singleton class by making the initializer private and accessing it through some sort of shared static property. And this is the only place we actually create core data manager instance. This is the only place. On line 15, this is the one and only place this is created.
I'm getting an error, and I'm not even sure what the error
Where?
is.
Like, what's the error say?
Has multiple commands produce user, Tiffany, pursuit, library, developer, Xcode, derived data, AVFoundation.
You might have not done this part here. So go back to the model, right? The core data model.
Okay.
And click on the entity here and go to the inspector.
Hold on, wait. You say on the model that it gave us and click on the entity and go to inspector.
Yeah.
And
do you see my screen right now?
I do.
Okay. Do you see module?
I do.
Make sure you select current module.
Got it.
Right. That's gonna cause that error there. Make sure you have code generator to manual.
Code generator. Hey, are people calling me?
So code gen to manual, right?
Okay.
Yep. You have that?
I do now.
And then delete the classes that were generated and regenerate them.
Oh, even though the error is gone?
If the error is gone, that's fine. Is it gone completely? You're able to build and run?
Yeah, well, I'm able to. So should I still delete them and redo them, or is it?
I would do that just to not have any side effects.
Okay, so the two that just came.
Yeah, those two, this guy and this guy, the properties and the core data class and the core data properties, just delete them and regenerate
them. And then the way that we did it before was from here we went to editor.
So delete, move to trash, go back to the module, go to editor, create, and go back to this dialog here.
Yeah.
Make sure this is selected and generate. In that case, here we are, where are we? In here, and make sure you're in here as well, and then just create.
Awesome, thank you.
Very good. All right, so moving back to the core data manager, we have our private init. Here we created a singleton. Again, at this point in the curriculum, we should know what singletons are, 100% here. So here we are creating a singleton.
So I'll go back to core data manager.
Cool, awesome. What's the next thing we need to do? Well, we need to get an instance, get instance of managed object context from the app delegate. Let's get some space going on here. So we need to get an instance of the NS managed object context from the app delegate. So we'll create a private constant here. We'll call it context. And we'll access the app delegate via the UI. We need one more import. So instead of importing foundation, just go ahead and import UI kit. Import UI kit here. And now we have access to UI application, which is a next singleton again. If we say that's shared. So this gets you all the application instances, all the application logic we need. And there's one application running. So in that one application that's running, we want to get access to the delegate, which is a UI application delegate. So we need to cast it here. And for Mr. Howard, he would be happy here because we actually could force an app here because there should be an app delegate when we run our app, or else we have no app. So here we'll call it app delegate. This is the places where you could do that, Mr. Howard. Other than that, I would stay away. So UI application shared delegate. Now we have an app delegate. On the app delegate, we could access the persistent container, which is that lazy var. In the persistent container, we could now get access to the view context, which is the NS manage object context, which does all the saving. Anytime we want to edit, save, fetch, this is what has access to that. So NS managed context. Saving, fetching. Okay. NS managed objects. Okay. An example of an NS managed object would be an instance of our CD media object. Awesome. So we have most of our configuration set up. Now we're gonna go through the create.
Quick question.
Yes.
What's the view context at the end do again? After persistence container, what is that?
What's the view context? The view context is the actual managed object context. It's the instance of the managed object context. That is the canvas. Like if we want to save anything, if we want to fetch anything from core data, this is what we need.
So in view context is where we have all the saving and.
Exactly. So then in some function here, if I have a function create, which we'll do, we'll have a function create. If I have an object I want to save, I need to say create, well, not create, I need to say context.save.
Right. Okay, yeah, I remember that now. Thank you.
No, very good. Yep.
So
okay.
here we can copy and paste, no? Because don't you have this on the app?
We're not going to copy and paste that part because that part we need to go through understanding what's happening there.
Okay.
Cool?
Yes.
All right. So create, what's the R for?
Read.
Read. What's the U for?
Update.
Update. Somebody else from the back.
Okay. Just doing it for my friends.
Fellow in the back.
Delete.
What's the D? Delete. Okay, good. I could see in the back of the room. Okay, so this is what we're gonna go through. We might not do read because, I mean, we'll do read, but update, we have no UI to update anything. There's no caption, there's nothing like that. But we might get to delete. Again, I showed us what delete looks like, but we might get to delete. But for now, let's create and let us fetch or read. And here we'll have some sort of fetch objects. Tiffany.
How in the hell did you know that was me?
Same, like my son says.
Emma.
Physically at Pursuit, the same. Virtually the same.
I'm on mute again.
Create. Okay, what are we creating? Well, we're gonna create some sort of media object here. And now media object is of what type?
CD media object.
What's that?
CD media object.
CD media object. Very good. So this is CD media object. It's not our media object, right? Because that was just for testing and as we're building our app. But now we're using core data. So this is to be a core data object. It needs to be an NS managed object, which this particular object is.
So question, we will have to refactor all of the
One
code.
second. I'm kind of going ahead of myself here. Yeah, go ahead.
We would have to refactor all of the other code that was taken.
Yes. That's why we push our code. It's not bad to refactor. That's what developers do all the time. It's fine. But here we're not creating we need parameters here. I'm kind of going ahead of myself. How do I create a media object? I need to create a media object. And this media object I'll create from the, I'm gonna call it CD media object. And here we're gonna use entity CD media object entity. And then the context is the context. This context, what are we gonna put it into? The context from the app delegate. Okay. Now, our CD media object, what does it need? Media object dot caption. We have no caption for now. We have a created date though. Let's do that. What is the created date gonna be?
Date.
Date, the current date, right? What else do we need? Well, we love IDs. So let's give it an ID.
So I have a question. Oh, okay, never mind.
How can we create an ID? The person in the back on the front row here.
Who's that?
I'm having fun.
It's a UID string, no?
Mr. Eric.
Oh, he's straight up ignoring me now.
The person in the front, I think she left, right? No, she didn't leave. She didn't leave. She's still here. Mr. Eric, sir.
Yeah.
Eric is probably working out right now.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. I want to create an ID, a unique ID here. How can I do it?
Would we still use the UUID?
Yeah, we definitely can. And
That
on.
UUID string?
So now we're going to convert it to a string, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, an instance of it. UID string here. Now we have a unique string.
Yeah.
Unique. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Alex,
yes, he's here.
I'm not able to access the CD media object. Like
CD, you're not able to access this guy.
Yeah, it says unresolved identifier. Did
Okay.
you make a variable for it or?
Do you have the class generated? Did you generate the classes?
I did. Right. It's I have that. Yeah.
You have the classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an import core data thing because core data doesn't care about that.
No.
Can you just go to product and do a clean build and try again?
Okay.
So product, clean the build folder, and try to build it again and see if you still have the error. But you should have access to the CD media object here. If you, well, a couple of things. You called it CD media object, right?
I did.
You did. Okay. So.
But I put it into a folder. Would that affect it?
It shouldn't affect it. It's still part of the project, so the project still sees everything.
Well, that's the only thing that I did that's different.
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily affect it there. Your options are all the same in the class module there for the model.
My options?
Yeah, for the inspector, for the entity here.
It should be.
Does it reflect, is the module the same? Look in the current product module.
Yeah.
And then CodeGen, you did that manually, right?
CodeGen. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. Regenerate the files again, like delete them and regenerate them.
Okay.
And this manage object, create context, and let us know how it's going. Let me get some more space here. Okay, cool. So we are still building this model or this instance. What else do we need? Well, let's see. We have created date, we have ID, image data, we need that. For now, I'll just put data here. And we need, well, it depends on the object. The object might not have both those things. So we need to figure out what the object is. And then we need some sort of video data, which I'll also just put data. Image data, we know everything requires image data. Is that fair?
Everything requires image data.
Yeah, both the video and the image has an image, correct?
Yeah, I was about to say, is that because of the thumbnail? Yeah.
Yeah, so both of them have an image, so that's fine. So now we could start off with our create. So create.
Alex, what do you mean?
I'm sorry?
Say that one more time.
So both the video and the image has an image. I mean, the objects, both objects have an image, correct?
Okay, okay.
Whether we create a video object or an image object, they both have an image.
Okay.
So there's no reason for us to say like, hey, maybe there's an image, maybe there's not an image, right?
Okay.
So we could say create media object here. Create media object. And here I could pass in like an image. Maybe should we create the data here or just have them create the data? Let's just have them create the data. So we have data, great. So we could say image data here. That's awesome. But the video data, that's optional. Okay, who's getting bored here? People are yawning in my ears. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Image data is some sort of data object. Well, again, should we have them create this? No, we'll create it here.
I'm lost right now.
It's okay. I will bring it
Creating
back to
image data or video data using the media object. So we're not creating a media object.
we're creating a media object right here. And we're assigning it its properties.
Oh, okay. Because we had it in the we had it inside of the parameters first, and we took it out.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to create the media object back in the view controller.
Got you.
I just pass in the required, very similar to what we did on Friday or Thursday. We'll just pass in the basic properties we need and then create the object inside of the create function.
Okay.
So is that still confusing?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. No, it's not confusing, but we only need an image data because both video and image have image.
Yes, both video and image objects.
So this is basically just to connect it. So we're just gonna get the image data from it, but once we get it, we get everything else that comes with that. With like, I guess I'm just, so we're giving it a date right there. We're giving it a string. So this is creating a different object from whatever we already have in the app.
Well, in our app right now, we refactor and remember.
Mm-hmm.
In our app right now, we're not persisting data.
So this is our new model.
Yes, and it's called CD media object, correct.
Right, but we're getting image data from what's already in the app though.
We'll get the image data from the image. So a UI image, we'll be converting a UI image. So we'll be, before we get here, we'll be converting a UI image to data.
Okay, and once we have that, we create everything else around that image.
Yep.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Yep. Again, we're just writing the function first, and then whoever needs that function calls it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And as we're writing the function, we could put restrictions here. Like maybe I don't want to get here and create like the image data from scratch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you have the image already in your view controller, just give me the data.
And we're getting it from the image controller.
Exactly. Does that help you?
Yes.
All right, cool, very good.
But even the video, though, if it's a video, all right, so we're getting the image data, and if it's a video, we're only getting what, the thumbnail?
If it's a video, we have to do more work. Oh, you mean like for line 29 or 28?
For line 29.
For line 29, we need to do more work. We need to write an extension that converts URL to data.
Okay. But we'll still be able to get into this to create something because we have an image data. Okay.
Exactly, but we need more, right? Like we need a video URL.
Yeah.
Right, so video URL is of some URL, which is optional. Why is it optional?
Because the images won't have a video URL.
Exactly, very good. So this is why it's optional here. Any questions, class, about this? And Tiffany, this is why we did not copy and paste, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those questions, like, you need to be able to reproduce that in your own project. Any other questions before we move on? Questions? No? Okay. All right. So we have our video data. How many properties did we have? We don't have a caption. That's the only one, right? We have 5 attributes, right?
Yeah.
All right. So we have 5 attributes, and then the caption, we have no UI for the caption, so that's fine. Okay, so that's cool. So we have a solid media object. Now we want to save it. save. That should have been a question. What do we do now? Are we done? Now we need to save the newly created media object entity instance to the NS managed object context. Okay, now we need to do the saving part of this. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now let's go save this. And our save throws an error, so we need to wrap everything in a do catch here. Cool. So now I think we want to return, right? We want to return the object so that we could insert it in the collection view. So let's return. Update your function. Okay, Siri. That's funny. My fan goes on crazy. Like the fan is like really loud right now. But the minute Siri gets activated, the fan just stops.
Well,
She's trying to kill you.
It's the feds. That's
He's
why.
trying to steal your data.
I don't know. Something is happening. It's happening. The happening is happening.
Siri's the feds.
I know. Something is happening. We want to return a CD media object here. Cool.
Alex,
Did you
We
mute
can't hear
yourself?
you, Alex.
we can't hear you.
I thought it was just me.
Same.
CD. I was like, uh-oh, what did I do? CD media object. Is it optional? Oh, duh. I couldn't see.
Can you guys hear me?
Did Alex disappear?
Can you hear me?
Hear you now.
You could hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Can you see? Can you see me as well? Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Weird.
I
You
hear
guys
you
might.
back rising.
You guys might be right. They're probably coming and get me.
Alex, when you were saying, "Can you hear me?" It felt like those like a horror movie, like someone trying to call for help.
I mean, stop watching late night horrors.
You
Do
were
some
like,
more.
"Hey, can you hear me?"
Do some more coding, Amini. Stop watching late night horrors. Amini.
That's right.
All right, let us continue. Return. What are we returning here?
A media object.
A media object. Okay, it's not trick questions. It's just like to help make sure we're all on board here. Now we'll have a do catch. We're gonna try to save it to the context, which could throw an error. And if we do get an error, we print out the error here. And failed to save newly created media object. Okay. Build.
An error could be caused like if there's no service, right? Like let's say there's no.
Or maybe the disk is full.
Oh.
That would more be like an error because there's no service, there's no like internet there. Like code data doesn't rely on the internet. But it's more like a disk is full or you don't have write access or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like a very minimum that's gonna happen. But in the case that happens, it's more like a IO error, like input output, like the file error itself, the file system. Like you guys, some of you guys getting errors like when you try to add more objects to your simulator. It's like, hey, disk is full or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be like one of those errors there. Okay, so this is pretty good. We could create something and return something. That's awesome. Oh, our video data is not done yet. This is not happy. We need to do some extension to return us a URL. We need to pass in a URL. We need to pass in this URL here. So we need to say if let's call it media. If we do have, not media, if we do have a video URL, we need to first check if we have a video URL. So video URL is video URL here. If that does exist, then we know we're coming from a video. exist a video. So if it exists, that means it's a video object. So basically what we need to do is a bit of work, very similar to what we did with the generating of a file. We need to convert a URL to data. No, sorry, the other way around. No, that's good. URL to, no, this is good, this is good. URL to data, right, because we're saving here. So we need to convert URL to data, which is not that much. This is straightforward here.
But we just make
yeah, the other way around is more complicated, but from URL to data is pretty straightforward, because on data, we have an initializer called contents of URL. And then here I just pass in my video URL, which also throws, everything throws. This is why I'm not doing a throw here yet, just because, again, the more throws you have, the more do catches you have to write. So here, this also throws, so we need to copy this. I'll copy that string and wrap it in a do catch and paste it here. So again, data contents of, it could throw. Maybe the URL doesn't exist. Maybe it's an invalid URL. Whatever it is here, it could throw an error. So that throws. So if it does throw an error, we could print it out and say failed to convert URL to data with error. Here we'll just put in the error like this. Cool. So we only get into this if let block if it is a video. If it is a video, we grab the URL from the video, which got passed here. We optionally unwrap it here. So now we have a video URL, it exists here. We attempt to convert the URL to data. If everything is good, then the video object just gets this data object, and we're good. Okay, this is what we have going on here. In that particular function, create media object.
Okay, so if it's a video, okay, so the do catch, the saving,
That's different. That's different. That's for actually saving it.
Okay, so no, but for this one, we're actually, all right, so for this one, it's just converting.
Yep.
And then whatever, but this only works one at a time. So it'll only either be a video or an image.
Yep.
If it's not a video, it would skip over the if let, or it'll go through the if let, but it's not a video, so it'll not go inside. It'll just go down.
It's not gonna go inside because it's nil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Any other questions or clarifications? This is good, right? So what Tiffany is doing there, she's making sure she walks over every line of code. That way she understands it. As we're working remotely, we really don't want to start isolating ourselves with questions. Like, ask the questions, because when you go back, you want to reproduce this, whether it be for your group or whatever. So making sure you understand every part of the code that we write here is very, very good. Even if that means we come back in a different lecture to continue. But like whatever we write in here, we should all know it. So that way we could reproduce it and stuff like that. We could talk about it, all that stuff there. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
All right, we'll write the fetch and then we'll end lecture and then we will we'll do stand-ups. So we'll write the fetch here, which is not that involved as the create was involved. We'll write the fetch. So fetch media objects doesn't take in anything. What should it return?
An array of objects.
An array of objects. Okay, so let's just create like an array here. Private, thank you. We'll just call it media objects. It's an array of CD media object here. And this is what I have. I added one line, media objects, an array of CD media object. And now let's go to finish our fetch. So in our fetch, right away, we know we want to use a do catch because the one thing we're using is the context and it could throw an error. So here we'll say do catch And what are we trying to do? Well, we need media objects here, which is our array. We'll try to fetch everything from the entity. So try context.fetch. What are we trying to fetch? Well, we'll use the entity, and try to get all the objects from this fetch request. So what are we trying to do here? Use the context to fetch, make a fetch. What are we trying to fetch? The entity called CD media object. We're trying to fetch all its objects here. So fetch all the created objects from the CD. Okay, so now we have the media objects. We could just return this. Return media objects. Okay, and here we just print failed to fetch the objects here.
On line 52, do you not need a let?
Line 52, I do not need a let. Let's see what line 52 is. So line 52, no, because we have a media objects, we have a media objects array.
Oh, I didn't make that, sorry.
No, that's okay. So we have a media objects array, and this is what we populate in here on line 52.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. And then just update our function, because now our function is a void function. It doesn't return anything. So now we got an error, unexpected, non-void. So let's update this to return an array of CD media object. Cool. So with that, we have fetching and we have creating. Okay. That's a good place to stop. Any questions with anything here that we did? As far as like, especially the create part, right? The create part has more parts, moving parts there. But the fetching parts is pretty much straightforward. We have a do catch, and we are trying to fetch all the objects from the CD media object entity and just return the objects we find. If there's nothing, it just returns an empty array.
I'm getting an error.
Okay, what's the error say?
I can't assign value of type any to, can you go up?
Type any. Which one? In which function?
For private, for the last one that we just did. Can you go all the way up, please?
This guy?
Okay, CD media object. Okay, I don't understand. And when you go down, all you did was do media objects is equal to try context dot fetch CD media object dot fetch request. I have exactly that. It's not working.
That should be returning an array of, what's the error say and what's the error say?
Now it's stopped. Now it's something else. Okay, so let me see.
Anybody else? Everybody else good with like, as far as like where we are right now?
I am.
Yep. Okay. All right, cool. Doing good, doing good. Okay, so a good place to stop here. Any other questions, please ask it before we depart from this core data manager class. Tomorrow, what we'll do, we'll probably have like an hour left of stuff to talk about. Basically, if we could create, we could fetch. Now we could just basically use it in our view controller, right? So in our view controller, just to see where we headed for tomorrow, if I go to my view controller, we have a bit of refactoring to do, which is fine. If I go back to the view controller, so some of the refactoring we have to do tomorrow is change this media object to CD object, right? So now it's a core data object. Where we're playing, especially like here, where we're playing stuff, we're not playing from a video URL anymore. We need to convert this to a media data object, which is fine. And for our did select, in our did select row at here, we are accessing the media object, which has a video URL. So now our media object no longer has a video URL. it has video data. So what we need to do is basically write an extension to convert a URL to data. Okay, convert data to your URL. So that way we could get a URL. Because at the end of the day, the AV player needs a URL. It would be great if the AV player just played with data, but it needs a URL. It needs somewhere to find out where that video is to play it, right? So we'll be creating like an extension to do that part there, okay? And apart from that, we should be good, okay? So it's probably like an hour, hour and a half tomorrow there. Any questions? Again, you could look ahead if you want to look ahead. The parts of this app is on the lesson there. If you want to start looking ahead, like if you the person working on that particular part in your group, you could definitely look ahead and see the code